Both LEGO and Scooby Doo have existed for almost 50 years, but for some reason, I'll take a wild guess and say financial, LEGO Scooby Doo sets weren't a thing. That was until 2015, the year that gave us a beautiful, nostalgic wave of sets. Today I'm here to take a look at all of the existing LEGO Scooby Doo sets and reflect on why the theme was so short-lived. So get your Scooby Snacks ready and let's begin. Although by 2015 LEGO has already mastered the art of collaborating with other IPs, they only had a handful of cartoon-based sets in their roster. In 2006, SpongeBob and Avatar: The Last Airbender were, if I'm not mistaken, the first cartoon-based sets made by LEGO, followed by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2012 and a one-off Simpsons house in 2014. That said, I believe that 2015 was a really good year for Scooby-Doo sets to release, because by that time LEGO had matured enough, there were a bunch of cool existing molds, and that's not even mentioning the necessary color palette that we simply had to have for Scooby-Doo sets. For instance, Medium Azure wasn't created until 2012, and some of the lime recolors were only created in 2014 and 2015. Let's take a look at the first set, undoubtedly the most recognizable one, the Mystery Machine. I gotta say, personally, I love it, but there are things about it that are difficult to love. Before we go into that, from my understanding, the set itself is not based on any specific episode, unlike some of the minifigures. So before we inspect the builds, let's check out the minifigures, because that's how it's usually done in videos like that. First one is the zombie, who turns out to be Ziki, the store owner from the Which Witch is Which episode of the original 1969 series. Fairly simple minifigure, it does the job, but I think there was an opportunity to make a specialized headpiece for him, since his head is kinda oddly shaped. I also think that yellowish green skin color here is a perfect choice, and he doesn't have any second expression, but he does have these two buttons hinting that it is just a mask. Next one is Fred, and he is pretty much perfect. They created a new specialized hairpiece for him, which looks great, and it wasn't used on any other minifigures until 2022, when they made the Spring Charming mini doll utilizing the same mold, but in different color. The only nitpick I could possibly have about Fred is his face print, specifically his scared alternate expression. I just don't think he's that expressive. Moving on to Shaggy, he's also really well done. He's got another specialized hairpiece, which also just recently made a comeback in 2024 in one of the Disney sets. As usual, the skin color on the torso doesn't quite match with the head and arms, but I don't think it looks too bad. Now, what's surprising is that Shaggy, unlike Fred, doesn't have a scared alternate expression, and I find that pretty odd. Another odd thing is that in LEGO Scooby Doo Haunted Hollywood movie, Shaggy has printed hips, making his short print just a little longer, which I think looks really good, and sadly that's omitted on the real LEGO figure here. Finally, we're getting to the star of the show, Scooby Doo himself. They did absolutely wonderful job with this figure, which is actually not considered a minifigure, at least on Bricklink, but for simplicity's sake, let's still call him a minifigure from now on. He consists of two parts, body and the head, which you can move. I really appreciate the level of detail on this figure, his color, unique and accurate printed spots on each side, and also the overall shape and proportions are on point. He's also got one stud on the back so that he can carry stuff, I guess, and he's almost entirely made of the usual hard plastic, but his tail is rubberized and therefore has a little movement. It also has the same thickness as a usual bar piece, which is great for making Shaggy carry him when he's spooked. Also, to connect his feet to the ground, you need at least 3 studs long plate. With figures out of the way, we can finally check out the builds. Now, as I said, I love this Mystery Machine. The size, the colors, and overall silhouette are just perfect. But it is very sticker heavy. The machine itself includes whopping 22 stickers. The only printed parts are these, and I'm pretty sure that's only because they don't do stickers for round curved pieces. I also have to say that I didn't apply them myself because, as I said, it's a used copy, but whoever did it have done a pretty decent job, especially with these two. Now, to take a good look inside, we have to remove the roof piece, which is only held by 2 studs, and also unfold the back. That is where we find more stickers. I do have to admit they're pretty cool and add to the story behind the set. Although, personally, I don't remember any high-tech being used by the gang, but then again, I mostly watch only the old series. Also, inside we can find a sink, a gas stove, a necessary giant sandwich, as well as a flashlight, camera, and a magnifying glass. Jumper plates on the floor suggest that Scooby needs to be put there, but if you do, it's a little tough to find place for Shaggy in there, but he still fits. The front of the van is fairly simple. We have a steering wheel and a radio, which is also a sticker, but there is a problem, and that is the fact that you cannot sit 3 minifigures in the front. So even if you put Scooby and Shaggy in the back, you won't be able to fit the rest of the gang here. However, there are mods out there that allow you to modify the van using only original parts of the set. I haven't done it myself, but if you want to do it, I'll leave a link in the description. By the way, this unique windscreen was also created specifically for this set and was only used in one other set from the Friends line. Lastly, I want to quickly mention that the van runs super smoothly because there's very low friction in the wheels, making it really fun to play around with. The side build of the set is this pretty simple animatronic tree, which also utilizes a sticker. The arms, if you can call them so, are on ball joints, so they allow some movements, and they can even kinda grab a minifigure. On the back side, there is a stickered control panel with the mystery machine shown on display. There's also this green stone, which is either a treasure that Ziki the zombie is after, or it's some kind of power source for the tree. I guess you have to make up your own story, because the only clue we have is this printed 2x2 tile of the in-universe newspaper Daily Babbler. It's cool, but doesn't really help us solve the mystery of the tree. You'll see more of these unique printed tiles because every set contains one, and I think it's a delightful inclusion. To sum it up, such an iconic set, and I only wish they included more gang members here. Up next is Mummy Museum Mystery, one of the smaller sets of the wave. This one is heavily inspired by the episode Scooby Doo and a Mummy 2 of the original series. The location though is not one-to-one what we see on screen, but rather LEGO's interpretation. The set comes with 3 minifigures, the Mummy, who turns out to be researcher Dr. Najib, and with this minifigure it's quite apparent because he has a double-sided headprint. His look is a little different compared to his show appearance because he has this Egyptian headgear, which I suppose was added so that he can have a double-sided headprint, but the same logic doesn't apply to zombie Ziki we saw in the previous set, so I'm not 100% sure, but it definitely doesn't look out of place. The original mold for that headgear was also introduced with Adventurers line of sets and later also used in Pharaoh's Quest sets, and even more than that, the headprint and torso print are taken directly from this Mummy Warrior minifigure with some minor changes and obviously different colors. We also get another Shaggy, this time with slightly changed facial expressions. Finally, he has a scared face, but beyond that he's exactly the same as the one we saw in the Mystery Machine set. We also have another Scooby Doo and he has the same body but a different head. This one doesn't have teeth printed on it, and that's already the second head variant for Scooby, and there will be even more. As for the build, it is indeed small, but to me feels enough for the scene they're trying to depict here. Right away we can see even more nods to the Adventures and Pharaoh's Quest with this pearl gold sarcophagus piece, which funnily enough wasn't seen in any other sets after appearing in this one. The figure on the sticker here is obviously Johnny Thunder, and 1922 is supposedly the exact year Adventures were set in. Another sticker on the left here is more generic and hints towards the treasure, which is hidden right here. The treasure itself is also different from the source material because Dr. Najib in the show was after the scarab, but here we have some kind of gems, I assume. Lastly, a simple play function this set has is when you pull on this sandwich, which by the way has a printed top, you can open the sarcophagus. Who put the sandwich there though is still a mystery to me. I have to say I also like all the pearl gold accents, and these lights are a really nice touch. It is such a shame that LEGO only has a light brick and doesn't do proper lighting, because if that was working lights, it would perfectly capture the essence of the original Scooby Doo Where Are You show with all the spooky backgrounds and the tiny spots of light here and there. I might have to look up third-party lights once I'm done with the video. Oh, and lastly, here's another 2x2 tile with a clue. Moving on to the Mystery Plane Adventures, another smaller set of the wave. It is mostly based on the Scooby-Doo Dynamite Show episode 5 of the first season. It also includes 3 minifigures with the exactly same Shaggy, so we can move on to the next one. And that is another villain, Headless Horseman, who is really Elwood Crane. He has this awesome pumpkin headgear which was brand new at the time and created for the Scooby-Doo line of sets. I also think that blue color of his torso and legs, as well as the purple of the cape, really complement his ghostly appearance. Now the Scooby-Doo from the set is entirely new. We've got the second sitting variant of his body, as well as a new head with printed pilot's goggles. While the head use cases are pretty limited, the sitting body is really great for play and display options. Taking a look at the set, first it is worthy of mention that this set was the last appearance of the white horse from the Lone Ranger, and it is a great horse with posable back legs. Now the actual build is this biplane that we kinda saw in the episode I mentioned before, with the small exception that it wasn't painted in the Mystery Machine colors. It was just a regular biplane, but I assume LEGO took a creative liberty here, and I'm all for it. Another creative liberty was also including this golden goblet instead of diamonds that Elwood Crane was actually trying to steal. This change I don't really get. There were also 7 stickers included to complement the color scheme, and also the set has a really fun play feature where you can drop 2 sandwich bombs. It's super silly, but I think it really works and it pushes that sandwich joke we already saw in the previous sets. Also inside there's only space for 2 minifigures, so you'll have to put one of them on that chain, which I think is really fun too. The plane build itself is fairly simple, no fancy techniques or anything like that. And lastly, we've got yet another printed tile with a clue. So overall, I can imagine this one being kids' favorite just because of how playable it is. Before we check out 2 biggest Scooby Doo sets, I just wanted to quickly announce that I have launched channel memberships with 2 levels. Breakwell for 99 cents a month gives you an exclusive members badge and shoutouts in every video, and Brickfriend for $2.99 a month gives you a badge, shoutouts, and also early access to the future videos. So if you feel like supporting the channel and the content I make, feel free to become a member. Thank you, and back to the video. This is the Haunted Lighthouse, the second biggest set of the wave. Somehow, this set was the most problematic for me. I never found one for sale for a decent price, and at the end I just had to bricklink all the pieces, and I'm still missing a few, in particular a couple of stickered ones. It's based on the Season 3 Episode 1 of What's New Scooby Doo, which had the lighthouse, the boat, and the lighthouse keeper. However, the swamp monster, aka Mr. Brown, seems to be LEGO exclusive villain, because although there are swamp monsters in the different shows, none of them was Mr. Brown. So the swamp monster I just mentioned is pretty creepy, especially the face print. You also might recognize his headgear because it's a recolor from the Monster Fighters minifigure Swamp Creature. Next villain is the Lighthouse Keeper, who turns out to be Verona Dempsey. This figure utilizes a recolored hairpiece of Balin from The Hobbit, and it fits the character really well. The head is also a glow-in-the-dark one, which is always welcome, and also I just noticed that the torso print looks feminine, which kind of spoils the mystery of him being Verona under the mask. Frankly, I'm not sure if it was intentional or just an honest mistake. We also finally get Daphne, and she's really good. Once again, a specialized hairpiece, but also printed legs with side leg printing. I know, crazy. And of course, she also has a scared alternate expression. Fourth minifigure is another Shaggy, and this time he's got a brand new torso, and the rest of the figure is the same as the others. And finally, the Scooby-Doo in this set also reuses already existing parts, but just in different configuration. Let's take a look at the builds now, starting with the boat, which again happens to be in the Mystery Machine colors. It's a really nice small boat, it has space for 2 figures to sit down, and behind this sizable engine you have the rope and handles suggesting that someone can use water skis. Finally, the lighthouse. To me, this is definitely the spookiest build of the wave so far. Of course, mostly because of the location itself, but also the small details like sand green and dark green pieces here and there. The stickers also help creating that uneasy feeling, as well as of course this giant rock skull, which could have been even more terrifying if it didn't have these angry eyebrows. I think they look a little silly, and you can also make a sad skull if you want. Going back to rockwork, I have to say it's simple but looks convincing, although this part here is my least favorite. Almost fully exposed light bluish gray 2x6 brick just sitting there. Maybe I'm not seeing something obvious, but yeah, seems strange to me. If we look to the left of that part, we can find the hidden spot for another printed 2x2 tile, which in this case is a treasure map. And right here you can see that I'm missing a sticker for one of the wooden planks, unfortunately. Going back to that skull, it is actually another hidden play feature. If you turn the knob in the back, the skull opens up and reveals a hidden cave. Inside the cave, you'll find a crate with diving equipment, a solid clue to solve this case. Also, check out how big of a difference this small Technic gear makes. With it, the mechanism is not loose, and it allows the skull to stay up even half open, versus if you remove it, it's pretty much very loose. Here in the back area we can also find a treasure chest filled with gems and a silver goblet, pretty standard treasure I would say. One level above is a kitchen area so that Shaggy and Scooby can cook something up while solving this mystery. And going one more level up, we find area looking like a jail cell with a giant spider and web. I wouldn't know why it's there. Maybe the lighthouse keeper kidnapped someone before and kept here, hence there's this sticker on the wall. Nobody knows, but it definitely adds more creepiness to the set. The final level, where the light is, also contains a hidden feature. You can just open it to find another hidden spot with a golden key, presumably for the chest we saw earlier. Here you can also see where I'm missing yet another sticker, unfortunately. Overall, I really love this set and how self-contained it is. It's a complete location with a bunch of hidden features that you get to explore. Also, I just realized they even used blue plates to simulate ocean. That's a really nice touch. Now it's time for the final and the largest set of the wave, the Mystery Mansion. This one was also a little tricky for me to get. I had one about a year ago without the Velma minifigure, but I sold it and afterwards regretted it. Then a couple months ago I bought one locally for a good price, complete with all the figures, except again Velma, who I still didn't have at the time. And as you may know, Velma is quite expensive, so I decided to kind of cheat. I bought her hair and head off of Bricklink, only about 15 bucks together. Then I used this torso from Marge Simpson with replaced arms, and also got these legs from Supergirl, and I even added this orange scarf backwards. So all in all, it cost me just about 20 euros. I think it turned out well enough, so if you are like me and want to save some money, feel free to use that method. Now let's take a look at the other figures in the set, which are in their original state unlike Velma. Shaggy, Daphne and Scooby are exactly as we saw them in the previous sets, nothing new, so we can safely skip them and get to the new villains. We've got 3 of them. First one is perhaps the most iconic one, simply because it's officially the very first foe of the gang, seen in the first episode, What a Night for a Night of the original series. The minifigure itself I think turned out almost perfect. The helmet with a plume as well as a chest armor are identical to what we see on screen, however what I'm missing here is any kind of leg printing. Also, I think it would have made more sense if they were pearl dark gray to match the armor and helmet. The face underneath the helmet is also very accurate to the show. We've got 2 yellow eyes, as well as the real face of the villain, who is actually Mr. Wickles, the museum curator. Our next villain is the Ghost. Under the disguise, however, it's Bluestone the Great, a magician turned criminal from the original series as well. The episode is called Hassle in the Castle. He uses a well-known piece for any LEGO fan, a ghost route, and this one also glows in the dark. Sadly, the final glow-in-the-dark piece from the Scooby Doo collection. Fairly simple figure, but definitely a necessary inclusion. Lastly, we have the vampire, whose real personality is Bob Oakley, who we saw once again in the original series in the episode called A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts. Funnily enough, Bob Oakley posed as 3 other characters in that episode to fool the gang, but LEGO decided to give us only his vampire appearance. He's got a decent enough torso and headprint, but what makes him the most standout villain in my opinion is perhaps the cloth elements. It's actually 2 separate pieces for the collar and the cape, and both of them are dual colored, which is always great to see. I think maybe because of his cape he feels like the main villain of the set. That's all of the figures, and we can finally take a look at the mansion. Before we do, I want to say that to my knowledge, it's not really based on any specific mansions from the show, but I think the closest one is from the episode Haunted House Hang-Up. Now, if you thought the Lighthouse was big, this build feels twice as big. It's split into 3 main parts and they all have their unique quirks, but of course there's a main theme across all of them. They all look decayed and abandoned. Every little detail screams don't go in there, but at the same time I think it's less dark and serious than the Lighthouse. Probably that's because of the color choices here, especially dominant purple that gives the build that cartoonish feeling. For comparison, look at the monster fight as Haunted House, which is primarily black and sun green. It makes it look more realistic and scary in my opinion. Going back to the Mystery Mansion, let's look at the greenhouse up close. I really like how simple yet effective the roof build is. You've got the broken glass, some spooky stickers, and this whole assembly is connected with only 2 Technic pins, so you can easily open it up. We also get another pumpkin headgear, which we saw previously on the Headless Horseman, but this time I suppose it serves as a normal creepy pumpkin. There's also a separate door to the greenhouse, which continues the purple color scheme, and above it there is a yellow light, which again I imagine would be perfect if it actually would light up. Taking a look inside, we find another pumpkin, a bone, and the elephant in the room, giant Venus flytrap. It's actually removable, so it's pretty convenient to showcase. It's bigger than the regular minifigure, has a few points of articulation, and overall I think it definitely fits with aesthetics of this place. In the center part of the mansion we find another purple door as well as a few more stickers, one for this window which adds a lot of needed small details, and also each number on this clock is a sticker. The clock in itself is also a gimmick. If you twist the knob in the back, you can move the clock's hand and reveal the vampire. With this feature, I suppose you can trick the gang to think the vampire can turn into bat or the other way around. I also really dig the rugged look of the facade. Once again, it's simple yet so elegant. On the very top of the central part there's also an appearance of the iconic tower roof piece in purple, but you might recognize it more in sand green from the very first Harry Potter sets. Last time this piece was seen in black in 2020's Hidden Side set and never again. I hope it will be back eventually. In the backside of that piece there's this black coffin for our vampire, and luckily it's a print rather than a sticker. Another gimmick of the central part is this trap for whoever trespasses, I guess. I think it's a little radical. You can do some serious damage with it. When it's released though, you can see a hidden portrait of the Miner, which is probably a nod to another classic villain, Miner 49er. And lastly, in the hall of the main entrance, there's a hidden spot containing a golden key. The third part of the mansion is perhaps the most scary looking one to me, as we have a minifigure skull down here, several creepy stickered windows, with two of them being closed off with wooden planks, and also what I assume is a willow tree on the side here. There's nothing to interact with here, but I appreciate the overall look of this part. Inside, however, there are a couple things to do, because once again we have a kitchen with all the necessities: sink, cupboard, and even an oven. The sticker here is probably the most nasty looking one, and to make the scene even worse, they've added a rat. This rat, by the way, also originates from the classic Harry Potter sets. The final touch for this kitchen is the sandwich, and frankly, it makes this whole scene look even more uncanny. Anyway, looking up, we find a well-protected safe with a printed lock, and this is where we'd use the key we found earlier. That's the last sticker of the set, and inside we find some gold bars, the most unique treasure so far. It's also interesting that they used regular 1x2 tiles instead of the ingots, which already existed at this point. I would also like to mention that both parts are somewhat detachable because they only use 4 Technic pins, so theoretically you can kinda rearrange the build, but the main part would be left with these, which doesn't look the best. We also get a small side build, a motorcycle with a sidecar, once again in the Mystery Machine colors. That's the 4th branded vehicle so far. Finally, here's a 2x2 tile with a clue. For me, this set is definitely a centerpiece of this whole wave, and lately it's been getting crazy expensive, as all of the other sets, but this one especially. However, if you can find one without Velma, it's going to cost you only about 90 bucks, at least that's what I've seen. Also, another great alternative is coming out this August, 3-in-1 Create a Haunted House, which will also contain a few iconic villains. Although that's all sets from the main wave, there are 2 more standalone sets. The first one is the Dimensions level pack, and frankly I don't know much about LEGO Dimensions. 2 builds included in the set: a small microfighter style mystery machine and a flying sandwich, I guess. It gets cooler with the minifigures though. The Shaggy is the same one that we already saw, but Scooby has another head variant. That's pretty much it. And now the very last Scooby Doo set, a promo polyback with yet another variant of Scooby Doo. This one was distributed with DVDs of the LEGO Scooby Doo movie, and this is officially the smallest Scooby Doo set. I don't want to open it though, I just really love the packaging. I'm sorry to let you down. I mean, you can kinda see the head here, which is pretty much the only unique part. Well, that's every official LEGO Scooby Doo set. And now the question is, why the theme ended so soon? And the short answer would be, we don't know. because none of us works at LEGO. However, the speculation and the most likely scenario is that there were multiple reasons. LEGO got a short-term license for the IP and just didn't want to renew it. The sales were not the best because there were a lot of internal competition with IPs like Marvel and Star Wars, and also it could have been the plan from the beginning. Just make a short one-year wave of sets and that's it. I think out of all of them, licensing is probably the most impactful reason, and I think that's why a fantastic fan-made model of Ravenswood Mansion was rejected multiple times in LEGO Ideas. By the way, it's in review stage right now, so there's a small chance we'll get a new Scooby Doo set, but personally I don't think so. Okay, that's it, bye!